Welcome to Cloud On Air, live webinars from Google Cloud. You're joining us for a live Cloud Study Jam, where we dive deep into cloud solutions and learning for cloud developers. My name is Renan Mandel, Senior Program Manager, and joining me today is Kyle Paul, Regional Lead. Today, we will be talking about Cloud Run Serverless Workshop. Let's get started. So as I mentioned, I'm Ron Mandel. I'm a Senior Program Manager here in the Developer Relations team, looking after our cloud ecosystem.
Cool. And I'm Kyle Paul, Regional Lead for North America Programs on the Developer Relations team as well.
Also joining us, we have a couple of Cloud Study Jam facilitators to answer your questions as we go along. We've got Jay Smith, one of our cloud customer engineers.
And Martin Omander, who's a developer advocate on the cloud team, and actually the creator of this lab that we'll be working through today.
Awesome. So what is a Cloud Study Jam? Cloud Study Jams are study groups for developers. From containerizing applications to creating virtual machines, study jams can be tailored to specific cloud topics and skill levels. Doesn't matter whether you're a beginner developer or interested in diving deep into topics like machine learning, BigQuery, preparing for certification, or learning Kubernetes, we've got a track for you.
Why serverless? Yeah. So serverless, that's greater than functions, right?
I think serverless is maybe more than functions. I think we're going to go with that. So what is serverless? Serverless can be thought of as an operational model where you can build and deploy software without having to think about the infrastructure. You don't have to manage your servers at all. You don't have to think about disk space, CPUs, hardware, networking. You don't have to worry about security because it's taken care of for you, and you only pay for it when you're actually using it. You can also think of serverless as a programming model, where you're building applications in a serverless-based model rather as a monolith. You're using event-driven services, so things are triggered when they happen, and it's an open ecosystem.
Another part of serverless is containers. That's where you can use any language, any library, any binary to build your application out. And it's reproducible. It's isolated from a host operating system. And you have a wide variety of base images that you can use.
Speaking of those base images, we know that containers have become an industry standard for software deployment over the last several years. You can see how the amount of Docker containers out there have grown, not exponentially, but pretty steadily throughout the years.
Yeah. Introducing Cloud Run.
So we're going to bring serverless to containers, the best of both worlds. So Cloud Run means you can take a container to a fully managed endpoint in just seconds.
You can also do request-based auto-scaling. So that means no operations or overhead required. It auto-scales up and auto-scales down based on your needs.
And you're only charged when your container is actually processing requests. So when things are idle, you're not getting requests, you're not getting charged. So as we said, on Cloud Run, you can run any language, any binary, any library, because you run the container that you design. You don't have to be restricted to any specific language.
It's also pay per use. You only pay while it's processing an HTTP request.
You get a managed HTTPS endpoint with fast auto-scaling. We can do tens of thousands of requests per second with a free subdomain, or you can bring your own domain and surface your endpoint on that.
It also runs on a fully managed Google infrastructure, or you can run it in Kubernetes to where you have a little bit more control.
So as we mentioned, it's only pay per use. What that means is the spin-up time you're not charged for. If you have multiple requests coming in at the same time that are overlapping, you only pay when you're actually processing those requests. When your second request ends, your billing cycle ends, and you're done. And this is in the hundreds of millisecond cycles.
And you have two different use cases. You have the public use case, which allows you to serve up a website, API endpoint, webhooks, or even create a mobile backend for your application.
Or you can use Cloud Run internally to your own infrastructure. So it's a private endpoint for serverless microservices or data warehousing type work. And that's actually what we're going to take a look at today in our lab.
Yep.
Cloud Run is also implemented with an open source Knative API. So you can do Cloud Run fully managed. You deploy your container on the Google infrastructure. You let us take care of it. You don't have to worry about your clusters. Again, you only pay for it when the requests are processing.
Or you can run Cloud Run for Anthos, which allows you to run in a Kubernetes cluster in a VM environment, which allows you to have the same developer experience and more control over your infrastructure and your code.
All right. So how does this fit in? There are several serverless compute options that are available to you on the Google Cloud Platform today. There's Cloud Functions, which are really code snippets like single-use, one-time, simple actions that you don't have to worry about so much, and it's kind of a narrow programming environment that you've got.
Or you could build it on App Engine, which allows you to build out your full-scale serverless application with source-based, HTTP, asynchronous requests, kind of all in one environment.
Or Cloud Run, which we have the ultimate flexibility because you're deploying a container, so you have complete control over the application that you're developing and putting out there in the world, but you can do it in a serverless fashion, so you don't have to worry about the infrastructure management.
Yeah.
Awesome. So serverless compute fits into a broader family of serverless solutions that are available to you to take advantage of on the Google Cloud Platform. You can do everything from deploying your code as containers or as simple function applications that we talked about, but there's also a whole ecosystem of other tools available to you. There's data analytics, there's messaging for your PubSub, there are DevOps tools for monitoring your logging, for managing authentication. There's even machine learning and AI infrastructure for you on our serverless infrastructure, and of course, chatbots and assistants. We're going to exercise a number of these throughout our lab today.
Let's get started. As questions arrive, you can drop them in the Q&A in the section right below this video. Our Q&A facilitators are standing by, ready to help you with these labs and answer any questions that come up during the workshop.
And you can ask them questions about the lab itself, or you can ask them questions about serverless and Cloud Run. So this workshop that we're going to get into today, the Google Cloud Run Serverless Workshop Quest, plays out a scenario of modernizing infrastructure for a small business. The lab that we're going to do actually drops us right in the middle of our quest. We chose this one because it's a good example of how you can apply Cloud Run, how it fits into the broad ecosystem of serverless technology that's available to you on Google Cloud. So this is the demo we're going to do. We are going to build a serverless app with Cloud Run that creates PDF files. We're ready to cut over to our lab. So now is the time when all of you out there in the world watching us will go to QwikLabs. So if you go to the link goo.gle/serverless-study-jam, you can join us as we go through this lab. You'll be provisioned with credits, so you can go along with us, follow us through, and then also afterwards, you'll be able to continue the quest and complete all of the labs in your journey.
Cool. Quick tip is use the incognito window to help you, so that way you're not signed into your existing Google account or using any additional Google Cloud Platform resources. So this way you're using the provisioned ones that are provided to you by this lab.
The beauty of this means that you can exercise the features of Google Cloud that maybe you haven't tried before and not have to worry about having to pay for it or having it hit your existing projects.
Cool.
Awesome. So we are going to run a lab. As we mentioned, go to that link, follow along as we go. It's important to know that what's going to happen is when you go to that link, you're going to get dropped into the quest. You want to enroll in the quest. Once you enroll in the quest, you're going to need to cut over to the Build a Serverless App with Cloud Run that creates PDF files, which is the third lab. And then don't click Start Lab until you're ready, because we're going to follow along with this.
Cool. And we'll go ahead and cut on over. And so as you can see, we're already in the lab.
So in this lab, we're going to bring together a number of pieces of the Google Cloud Serverless Platform to deploy a private microservice. We're going to leverage Cloud Storage, Cloud Build, Cloud Repository, PubSub, Stackdriver, Cloud Run, of course, and the Cloud IAM authentication services. These components are going to enable us to build out a dot conversion service that will simplify how our vet clinic shares invoices with our customers by converting them all to PDF automatically. To get there, we're going to walk through the following 5 steps. First, we're going to build and deploy a very simple Cloud Run deployment that has a web server listening in a private environment. Then, we're going to set up storage buckets for processing invoices and other files. After that, we're going to create a PubSub topic to notify our Cloud Run service that a file's been deposited into our upload bucket, and we're going to include authentication with a service account. Then we're going to test it to make sure everything is wired together properly and functioning. And then finally, we're going to update our container to run LibreOffice and actually process our files, redeploy, and validate that everything's working together. So with that, we're going to get started with our lab.
Cool.
So our context here, as we mentioned, is we are modernizing the infrastructure for a small business. This is a vet clinic. So we're going to be working with their tools and services to help improve their invoicing so that users and visitors to their clinic actually have a better experience.
Cool. So we're down here. As Ron mentioned, all the prerequisites and the setup and what we'll be working through. So now I think we're ready to go ahead.
I think we're ready to start the lab.
Start the lab. So
right.
everybody watching, start lab button.
Okay.
We want to launch with 3 credits, which were already provisioned to you.
When you followed that link, you got credits deposited into your account. So what's happening right now is in the background, we just spun up a Google Cloud instance that's dedicated to this lab. This is ephemeral. When we're done with this lab, this instance will go away. This is how you're not getting billed for it. So you get a set of credentials that you will copy paste to sign in to the Google Cloud Console dedicated to your lab. So we got our username, we got our password. We're going to accept some terms and conditions because, of course, we are. We're not going to set up two-factor auth because this account is going to disappear in a little under an hour. All right, we are now on the Google Cloud Console, and we're going to get started. We're going to accept the terms and conditions again because we're actually in the United States. We feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, pretty confident.
Maybe you're not. Maybe you got a different country. That's awesome. We're glad to see you joining us from around the world. OK, so now we've got our console ready to roll. We have our project up, and we're going to start going. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get into the Cloud Shell so that we can follow along and follow the instructions in our lab.
So we're going to activate the Cloud Shell using the icon in the top toolbar. And then we want to acknowledge that it's free for all users and go ahead and continue down here.
So this is basically our own little Linux environment that is going to allow us to interact with all of the various services that we need to get our Cloud Run instance running. Awesome. So we are in. We've got our console up, and we're going to start following our instructions. So as you notice, we're already configured with our project ID. So we're set there. This is just an example of showing like the kind of things we're going to do. So here we come to our first thing that we talked about, which is we said we are going to build out a simple Cloud Run service. It's going to be pretty high level. All that it's going to contain right now when we start is a simple Express web server. So the first thing we're going to do is we are actually going to clone our repository. Actually, first we're going to enable Cloud Run API. So you can either search for it in the search bar, or you can find it from the the hamburger menu on the top left. But we're going to turn on Cloud Run, and it's that simple. Now all of our projects can use, and everything we do within this project will be able to enable Cloud Run.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So now we have our API up and ready. So we have these labs out here. Our sample code exists. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clone the repository. So we have our good starting point. Awesome. We're good to go. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look in the container that's in our lab. And we need to actually have our web server do something. Right now, it's just stubbed out and only has test code in it. If you take a look at the index.js file, so there's no start code in here, so nothing would really happen when we deployed this container. So we need to actually add that line of code to make it start. And when it starts, when our container starts up, it's actually going to kick off and start our server.
Open the wrong one.
Oh, alrighty then. So Kyle is a big fan of this editor. You can use whichever editor environment you want. You can use VI, you can use Emacs. It's up to you.
Again.
So the Cloud Shell itself, you can also have in a standalone window, so you're not confined to the little rows at the bottom of the screen if you don't want to be.
So we're actually going to be editing the package.json. I opened the wrong one. I opened the index.js.
All right, I think I led you astray there in my instructions, so I'll take the blame for that one.
Gotcha. So here, so we're going to need to go back and cd.
All right, so we're in the lab 3 directory because we're in lab 3 of our quest.
It looks like I have to clone again into the pet theory.
All right.
And then we can go in there, and then we'll nano into package.json.
There we go.
There we go.
All right, now we're going to add our start line in here.
And node. Index.js.
All right.
And
that looks good to me.
why is it not?
So you add your comma. Alrighty. We're going to save our file.
Cool.
Awesome. Now we're going to add some packages here via npm install, so that we have our web server components that we need. All right. We're pulling down our packages from the outside world. Things look pretty good. We could take a look if we wanted to inside our Docker file to understand what's going to happen. But what we're going to do is, as we're a little short on time, we're trying to express through this, so to speak. The first thing we're going to do is we're actually now going to build this container and submit it to our repository in the cloud. So we're going to use this with the gcloud build command. And now what we're doing is we're actually building this in the cloud. So this isn't, as you can see, none of this was local, right? We were all doing this on the Cloud Shell. We got an error. Did we get an error?
Yeah. Did we skip a step?
Did we forget to set a project ID? It's an environment variable, perhaps. Gcloud config set project ID. And our project ID is available to us in the, no? Maybe the environment, the gcloud product ID variable wasn't set? Is that what it's saying?
The project ID.
Yeah.
So project ID, we're not at that step yet.
What did we miss?
Interesting.
I think it's at the very top. So if we can grab that project ID. For some reason, that environment variable didn't get set, right?
So our project ID over here.
All right, your project ID is available to you at the top of the shell. It's also, if you can't find it there, if you were to scroll all the way to the top of the lab instructions, it's there as well.
Oops.
I think you need to make that. I think you need the gcloud config command on it.
Oh, that's right.
No, you don't need the equal.
Oh.
It's just you can.
This?
Yeah, that looks right. Oh, you missed the set. If you just it's got history. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
That looks good.
It still doesn't like our
It doesn't like our project ID.
Interesting.
Huh. All right, let's scroll back up in the instructions here and see if we see what step we missed. Like
where we're cloning.
We cloned, but even earlier in the before we enable the API, higher up there. So gcloud config list project. Let's see if. Aha. So it is not set. So if you scroll, let's scroll to the top of our lab instructions. And we should have had that window that has our, at the very, very top, like you go all the way up. Oh, did it disappear over to the?
Yeah, it disappeared.
It disappeared. There we go. That's the one we want. All right. So.
Is it because I opened it up in a new
Oh, it's perhaps,
shell,
yeah, because you opened
perhaps?
a new shell. Yeah,
So
that's right, you opened a new shell.
Let's try to see if I can get the shell back opened here.
All right.
So there.
There we
There's
go.
our
That looks
project
good.
ID.
All right.
Oh, okay. So yeah, careful if you're following along with me and you open it up in a new window, you probably are running into the same issue. So let's go back and get this going again.
So do we need to...
Just in case it already exists, perfect. And then we're going to cd into that directory. And let's check on our package.json. Cool. So
that
yes,
looks good.
So we'll
we got to add our start line.
Yeah, we'll need to add the start line in here.
When all else fails, going back to the start, it's not a bad idea.
Index.js. Perfect.
All right.
We want to save that.
All right.
Perfect.
Excellent.
And then we'll probably need
to install our packages.
This.
All righty. Excellent. We've got some packages downloading and installing.
And
then we ought to be able to build.
Now we should be able to build because our project ID is already pre-assigned for us.
Excellent.
So
when you're building in the cloud, it's important that you are giving it the right destination.
Yeah.
There we go. This looks a little healthier. All right. So what's going to happen right now is we're taking this source repository that we cloned, we're building it, and we're going to create an artifact in our own container registry so that we can then deploy it as a Cloud Run endpoint. This is the very first step of, rather than writing just little code fragments, we're actually putting together a whole container that has an underlying host operating system, some packages that we need to run our web server, and then some very simple code. Right now, this is like that very first step where we're just getting the building blocks in place. Our build is happening. We are getting ready to hopefully make it available soon in our repository. And then we're going to take a look in our registry to see that it's actually there. One of the interesting things about the Cloud Shell, about the Cloud Console is, look at that, our build is done. So you can see in our container registry, got it.
Interesting.
What did we say?
So we don't have permissions.
Interesting.
Interesting.
That's very interesting. OK, let's check our progress and see.
We'll make sure everything completed here.
Look at that. We built properly. Awesome. All right, we're going to keep cruising along here. So now we've got a container that we just built. Now we're actually going to tell it to run as part of Cloud Run, the core of our service here. So it's pretty straightforward. All we're saying is we're going to deploy this container that's in our registry, and we're going to put it in a managed platform because we don't want to run it on Anthos. We want to run it on the fully managed version. We want to put it in the US Central region. You could put it in whatever region you wanted, wherever Cloud Run is available for you. And we're going to not allow unauthenticated, we are not going to allow unauthenticated requests because we want to run a secure service here. So this is the process where we are actually spinning up an endpoint without even thinking about or caring about what the underlying hardware is, the networking, the storage. It's all just magically getting created for us by the Google Cloud Platform in the background to run our container and make it live.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and try to see. So the other thing as looks like it finished. Perfect.
OK, so we're up. Awesome. So what we can do right now is we're going to set up a service URL so that we can easily,
refer to this later in the workshop.
Yep. All right, we've got our environment variable, and now we're going to check to see if it's actually working.
Make sure we set it correctly, and it looks like it's there.
Awesome. Let's check our progress.
Green check marks are good.
Awesome. We deployed. That's great. OK, so now we're going to see, did we actually deploy? We're going to hit our endpoint and see what we get back. We're just going to do simple curl to the URL that got created for us. And
oh no.
Oh no.
But this is a good thing because we told it to not allow unauthenticated users. So what we can see here is that it is working. So the request was accepted, but it denied our access to it because we were not authenticated.
So now let's try it again and actually pass in some credentials based on our project.
So
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed we're authenticated this time, and we
okay.
Woo-hoo.
That worked. All right, we're cooking now. All right, so now we've got, as we mentioned, we've got our simple building block up. We've deployed a container. We built it, we deployed it. It's up, it's listing on a URL. It's not doing that much yet, but we've got it in there. We're going to get the next building blocks of our pieces in place. And this, as we said, is creating our storage buckets so that we can upload files that we want to convert and then create a spot to put them after they've been processed. So these are simple, simple commands using the GS tool utility to create storage buckets for us. All right, we've got a couple of buckets created.
And we can go check that really quick. Oops, getting click happy over here.
All righty.
All right.
Kyle's known for being click happy.
Storage. So we're going to look at our storage. That's interesting.
I wonder why it's giving you permission issues, but that's okay.
That is interesting.
We can check our tasks and just see if everything is.
Go to cloud storage.
All right.
No. Here, I'll just do it from the menu.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Storage. Browser.
Yep.
Interesting.
It's like you're in a different project almost.
That is weird.
Yeah. All right. We're not going to sweat it there.
Interesting.
All right.
I'll just go back here.
Yep.
Cool.
We'll go check our task.
Make sure we're completed.
As long as the lab knows we've got a storage bucket. We've
There
got
we
a storage
go.
bucket.
We have a
That's
storage
awesome.
bucket.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is actually take a look and see, we're going to put some files in our storage bucket, right? We can do this just with, again, a simple GS util command where we are.
And these are a bunch of sample files that are created. They're images, they're PDFs, they're Excel files. They're a bunch of different files that we're going to test here. So we're going to test that they uploaded correctly to our upload folder or bucket.
All right.
Success.
Awesome. All right. So now we're going to get into the authentication part of things, where we're actually going to create a service account. Because again, as you noticed, if we don't have authentication, we told our service, don't run, don't listen. We're going to set up the authentication so that we can allow these things to be triggered automatically. So when a file gets added to our storage bucket, that it can kick off the Cloud Run service without any person having to interact or start a process here.
And we're doing this all through PubSub. So we're creating the topics, creating the authentication, and yep, we're golden.
Awesome. We got our project added.
And then next we're going to get the project number by running our gcloud command.
So this is the part where we're stitching together our various pieces of the serverless platform so that they can come together and run an interesting service that actually helps our business.
And so
All right, we've got a project number.
Yeah, as you can see here, we're looking specifically for the QwikLabs-GCP project ID. And so we want that project number that is associated to that. And we're going to set that here for.
All right, and this is going to allow us to create our authentication tokens so that we can actually successfully connect our services together. Awesome. And then the final step here is we're actually going to create those subscriptions so that every time we add a new file to our upload bucket, a message will get sent on our new doc topic. Awesome. We're going to check our task to see.
Oh, I got to do this one step here.
I'm getting ahead of the game a little bit. There we go.
Perfect. Now we can check our progress.
Okay.
Here. And, oh.
Uh-oh. It doesn't look like you've completed this step. Try again. Okay, so what did we miss? We got our project ID. We set our project number.
Make sure we have that set.
Yeah. No.
No, I didn't set it.
Okay, it didn't set it. All right. So you did. Project number is not set. Create a project number environment variable. Replace the project number with the project number. Isn't it? Should it be a gcloud config set? Project underscore number. Nope. Oh, it's leave out the equal.
Oh, that. Okay. Here,
Yep.
let me try that again.
All right.
gcloud config set project number, and then we add it.
Set core has to be property in. Huh. Why is it not allowing us to set project number? It feels like there's something. I mean, the instruction is just project number equals.
That is interesting.
And if you do, and if you copy that.
Do 74847.
All right. It's not a good demo if there's not live debugging required. Okay. So now let's try that.
Interesting.
Okay, well, let's try do this. We were able to. Okay, that looks good.
So, double checking.
All right. And then we created our. Okay, following our instructions here again. All right, now let's create our pub sub auth token thing and just see what happens here. Okay, that seems good. And now we are going to
here we go. Okay. Resource already exists, so
okay. All right, let's check our progress
Should be
again and see
good.
what happens here.
Hey,
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, mystery
Success.
solved. Right on. Okay, so now we've got our pub subtopic published. We have our authentication in place. We have wired together the storage bucket with our Cloud Run service. Now, what we're going to do is do a lightweight test here by copying some files into our upload bucket and see if indeed it's kicking off our messages. And since we didn't actually, if you notice, our Cloud Run container doesn't really do anything other than say okay, so we don't expect anything to happen, but what we can do is leverage Stackdriver and take a look at the logs to see, hey, did these things kick off when we uploaded our files into our storage bucket and tied together our topics? Is our Cloud Run service happening? We have no permission to view logs? What?
I think it's because it's a different project ID somehow. Interesting. We'll just leave it on this.
Okay.
But yeah, so as you're following along, you'll see something similar to here in the instructions that shows that the file was triggered, the topic was triggered from the pub sub, that it recognized that a file was put into the upload bucket.
Alrighty, so now that we've got these things wired together, we've copied some files into the upload bucket, we know that the Cloud Run service is getting triggered. Now it's time to come back to our container and add in the power of Cloud Run, which allows us to deploy whatever we really want. As we said at the outset here, what we're really going to be doing is converting files to PDF. To do that, you could build out your own service. You can try to figure this out, but there happens to be some code out there in the world, a software package that's been around for a little while, LibreOffice. And LibreOffice has the ability right now to just run headless and pass in files and output PDF. There's a simple way to do this, like from a command line, but we're not running a command line, right? We're running a container in the cloud. So what we really need to do is put together a number of packages. This is our true custom image that shows the power of Cloud Run, allows us to deploy legacy software without changing the software at all in a serverless environment. So what we're going to do now is actually change our container. So we're going to go back into our Docker file and tell it, you know what? This container not only needs to include its base images, but we also need to add in OpenOffice. So we're going to update our code in our Docker file to say, hey, get LibreOffice, and do a clean install of it. So that becomes part of our image, right? Once we've got that done in our Docker file, the other thing we need to do is to update our actual web service. So right now, as you recall, all it does is either say, OK, or sorry, you're not authenticated. Well, if you are authenticated, what we really want to do is kick off this process to do the conversion. So we are going to update our index.js file so that indeed, when it gets called, it's going to trigger and actually hand over and kick off this conversion process.
And
so in our request response segment, we're going to add in the, hey, pass this file over bit. All right, and then we're going to add in the processing to the bottom of the file. All right, that looks good to me.
So looks pretty close to the example doc.
Yep. And if for whatever reason you feel like you maybe typoed or you maybe screwed something up or didn't put it in the right place, you can take the entire file and copy and paste and put in the whole contents. Feel good that it's the right stuff. All right. So now our main logic really is in that section in the function where we're actually going to accept our file and we're going to convert it, and then we're actually going to copy it into our other bucket to show that it's been processed. All right, so now, again, back to the cloud, we're going to rebuild our container. We're going to create a new revision that has our more powerful code in it that's doing more than just saying OK or rejecting you because you're unauthenticated. This is going to take a minute or two because we got to pull down the OpenOffice package. Sorry, LibreOffice. I'm sorry, I'm stuck in like 2006 in my head. So the LibreOffice package, build the container, get our Node Express.js packages running, and then push it back up into our repository.
So as Ron was saying, like this container now has all of these things that are part of it, and so that's what we're rebuilding here. So instead of just the simple index.js with our node, now we have all of these things coming together. So that way it gets triggered whenever there's a cloud storage bucket being uploaded, all the child processes that get fired off. So
this also comes back to, you may have been wondering when we started this process, we said, hey, Cloud Run gives you the flexibility more so than something like App Engine or Cloud Functions where you're really restricted into your execution environment. But then we started out doing Node.js. You're like, wait a minute, that's one of the supported languages. I don't think you can run OpenOffice on LibreOffice on App Engine, even if you wanted to.
Right. So our package is still going, building away. The other thing that you may not have noticed in our changes to our index.js file and our Docker file was that we increased the bucket size and the memory in order to allow for LibreOffice to run in 2 gigs of RAM. So that was something that it helps it run a little bit more efficiently and allows for us to handle that conversion of any file to PDF.
All right.
And that's in that memory line.
Yep.
Right up.
I think that was in one of the...
That was in the Docker file.
No, that was actually in the build file. I think it's because it's part of the config, right? I think it's when we actually deploy it and run it, we're telling it, hey, run with 2 gig of memory.
Oh, that's right. That was here in the command.
Right.
Yes. So cool.
All right.
So,
well, it's not actually. It's actually when we deploy it. We haven't got. You're jumping the gun.
Oh, I'm jumping the gun.
You're jumping the gun.
Okay.
We're still building our image and getting up into our cloud repository so that we can then run it.
I'm ready to go.
With memory, right? You are ready to go. You are ready to go.
So we are very close here on the build process.
Yep.
So again, LibreOffice is a little large of a package, so it's going to take a little bit of time for this process to complete. So, but as you can see, it's churning through. There's a lot happening.
You know, while this is going on, it might not be a bad idea to see if we can't resolve our issue with
our permissions issue.
With our permissions issue. Yeah.
So if we look at this, I assume if we copy this project ID, let me put this back here.
All right.
And then we search for our project ID. Interesting.
It's like you're on a different account almost when in this
that's
other.
the same project ID.
That's weird.
Interesting.
And you can see, there we go.
Looks like our build
build is
finished.
done. Let's check to make sure our build is done.
Yes, now let's double check.
Awesome.
Green check marks are good.
All right, the lab knows that we're doing the right things. Now we get to Kyle's excitement about increasing our memory space.
Increasing memory space. So that way, as we are converting PDFs, now we have memory to do so.
All right.
So again, we're still doing platform managed. We're just restating that. We're still in the US Central for our region with deploying. Here's where the memory is increasing to 2 gigs.
Right. Here's also where we're setting the environment variable so that we're passing into our service where our buckets are so it knows what to listen on.
Correct. And we're telling it to set the processed bucket specifically, so that way once it's been processed, it then switches over.
Yep. So we got to tell it where to deposit those files.
And
All
deploying, almost done. It's creating the new revision right now and soon to reroute traffic to our new revision.
Yep. So what would happen right now is if we reached our endpoint, we would still just get our OK message no matter what. So there's going to be a seamless handover once our new revision is deployed. So this means there's basically no downtime while you're actually changing your code in the background, getting it built and getting it out there.
Exactly.
The other thing that's interesting or that's powerful and meaningful about Cloud Run is we've got a lot of controls for you too. As we said, it will seamlessly scale up to tens of thousands of requests per second. But if you're concerned about that, you can actually control how many. You can set upper limits on that as well. Oh, it looks like our revision is done.
It's been deployed. Let's check.
Oh man,
awesome.
Those green checkboxes make me feel so good. All right. So now we're going to see what happens if we actually hit our endpoint via the command line.
Yeah. And again, we're testing this using an authenticated request.
Dun, 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 dun.
And it's still going to serve back an OK, but what it's actually doing is processing the documents, Excel files, JPEGs, all
I think we're good here because we haven't put anything into our bucket yet, right?
Right.
So it doesn't know that it needs to do anything. So this is what we're going to do now is we're going to copy our files up into our bucket and kick our process off. So now is where the magic is really happening. We're copying files up into our bucket. They are automatically triggering off a notification via our pub sub topics. The pub sub topic is getting kicked off to our Cloud Run process, which is going to handle these things and convert our files. So we are hopeful here that we're going to be able to take a look at our cloud storage and see, indeed, these files got processed.
Let's try to get back here to the browser.
Maybe.
Still.
What happens if you click retry?
It sends me back to the main screen. Let's go back into storage, browser.
Okay.
We're missing permissions.
Storage bucket list. All right. I thought we were the project owner.
Yes.
All right. Well,
alrighty.
We feel pretty good though. All of our services deployed. They're running end to end. Everything is connected. We have Cloud Run. We have PubSub. We have cloud storage. We have authentication. We have our source repository. And we did it all in under 45 minutes.
Right. And
wow,
so
we did it all in under 35 minutes.
35 minutes. So
wow.
As you can see, so now since we're completed, hopefully you were able to see the converted files coming from coming from documents, Excel files, JPEGs, PNGs. Now they're all converted to PDF in your process bucket. Once you've seen all that, we can go over here and click the End Lab, which will end our current session and end the instance of our GCP setup. And we'll go ahead and give this a 5-star rating. Because we did pretty good.
I feel pretty good that we did pretty good.
Awesome.
All
so
right.
Now you can see the timer's been reset. And if we go back out to our quest outline, you can see that we have a nice green check mark.
So we jumped right into the middle of this quest. But we did this because we wanted to show you what the power of Cloud Run is. We also did it because it pulls together a number of the serverless solutions that are available to you on Google Cloud. You saw that we executed Cloud Build. We put stuff into a container repository. We created storage buckets where we put files and received files. We created pub sub topics. Say that 5 times fast. So that we could indeed trigger events and kick off our service that we built using Cloud Run.
We also leverage Stackdriver for logging and seeing the process complete. And then we also set up security. So we use the IAM services to make sure our requests were authenticated.
And of course, we did a lot of stuff in the Cloud Shell.
Oh, yes.
And we even did a little debugging along the way. We kind of covered the gamut, but that's not all that's out there. As we mentioned, there are other serverless solutions that we didn't even touch on today, like our ML and AI serverless products. We didn't get into any data analytics on our service, seeing how often our events were triggered or how many people were using it or how many clients we had. And we didn't even set up an assistant or a chatbot to help our customers in our clinic.
Right. And as you explore the rest of the labs in this quest, you'll see other opportunities to use like Cloud Firestore, for example. So setting up and managing database and security and permissions around a database as well. So you get to touch more different products with serverless.
So again, as we mentioned, we jumped right into the middle of this one. Now that you've got this one completed, or even if you were struggling a little bit, don't worry, you can come back and try again by enrolling through the link that we started out with, which was goo.gle/serverless study jam. You will get a month access to complete all 5 of these labs. So you have some time to work through them at your own leisure, at your own pace. And you can go back to the beginning and start at the beginning and see the full end-to-end journey of how we're modernizing the infrastructure for our small business using the power of serverless solutions on Google Cloud.
Awesome. And let's keep the conversation going. There's a lot of opportunities to join us in the Slack that was created, as well as in the comments section and questions with our facilitators.
All right. Also, to keep the conversation going, we highly encourage you to check out a Google developer group near you. You can visit g.co/dev/GDG to find a list of communities everywhere around the world where developers like yourselves, all levels of skill, all levels of experience, come together to help each other solve problems, learn from each other, explore new solutions, maybe run a study jam.
Yeah, have some fun like we did here today. And if you don't find one that's near you, you can apply to lead one today using that same link.
So that wraps up the demo portion. We're going to take a quick break and be back in less than a minute for some Q&A.
Awesome. We have a couple questions that came in from our viewers, and the first question is for you, Ron. So, is there a time limitation for the execution of serverless functions?
For Cloud Run, the time limitation is it's a 15-minute is the timeout on the process.
Perfect. Cool.
All right. So I've got one for you, Kyle, which is there any standard pattern or way to improve the container load time?
That's a great question. And so one recommendation that I can provide here is if you simplify your container, that helps in the build load time, and you can actually have multiple containers work in tandem together. So that way it helps speed up that load time.
Awesome. Sounds good.
So, perfect. Cool. And thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Check back next time for more technical content and interactive demos from Google Cloud experts on Cloud on Air.